Noam Chomsky, you know the name, he's like the rock star of intellectuals. This guy has been shaking things up for decades. He's a linguist, a philosopher, a political activist, but most of all, he's a critic of power. Chomsky doesn't care who you are or what you believe. If you're in a position of power, he's watching, and he's not afraid to call you out. Chomsky's been writing books and giving lectures for years. He's tackled everything from the Vietnam War to the media to the global economy. And he always does it with razor-sharp wit and a mountain of evidence. He makes you question everything. He makes you think. In this essay, we're diving into one of Chomsky's most famous works, Keeping the Rabble in Line from 1994. It's a collection of essays and lectures where Chomsky dissects the ways that power maintains itself. He exposes the tools, the tricks, and the tactics used to keep ordinary people in check. Get ready, because Chomsky's about to take you on a wild ride. He's going to challenge your assumptions, make you uncomfortable, and maybe even make you angry. But one thing's for sure, you won't be bored. Keeping the Rabble in Line is classic Chomsky. It's provocative, insightful, and unflinching in its analysis of power. The book's title itself is a dead giveaway. It tells you exactly what Chomsky's after. He's exposing the mechanisms used to control the masses. Chomsky argues that democratic societies like ours aren't as free as we think. Sure, we have elections and free speech, but behind the facade of democracy, there's a whole system designed to manufacture consent and marginalize dissent. It's a system that benefits the few at the expense of the many. The book is a collection of essays and lectures, each tackling a different aspect of power and propaganda. Chomsky dissects the media, the education system, the political establishment. He shows how each institution plays a role in shaping public opinion and maintaining the status quo. One of the key themes of the book is the idea of necessary illusions. These are the myths and distortions that we're fed by those in power. They're designed to keep us passive, obedient, and distracted from the real issues. Chomsky doesn't pull any punches. He names names, cites evidence, and connects the dots. He shows how the powerful use propaganda, fear, and distraction to manipulate the public. Chomsky argues that true democracy is a threat to those in power. Why? Because in a true democracy, the people have a say. They can challenge the status quo and demand change, and that's the last thing the elites want. So how do they prevent this? By manufacturing consent. Chomsky argues that the powerful use a variety of tools to shape public opinion and manufacture our consent, the media. The media plays a crucial role in shaping our understanding of the world. But according to Chomsky, the media isn't some neutral observer. It's owned by corporations and influenced by government agendas. This means that the news we consume is often filtered, distorted, or outright censored to serve the interests of the powerful. Propaganda isn't just something that happens in dictatorships. Chomsky argues that it's alive and well in democratic societies. We're bombarded with messages designed to instill fear, patriotism, or consumerism. These messages are often subtle and insidious, making them even more effective. Distraction. Keep the public distracted with entertainment, consumerism, and trivial matters. This prevents them from focusing on real issues like inequality, injustice, and the abuse of power. By controlling the flow of information, the powerful can shape public opinion and maintain their grip on power. Chomsky has a lot to say about the media, and he's not exactly singing their praises. In fact, he sees the media as a key player in the system of manufacturing consent. Remember, Chomsky isn't talking about some grand conspiracy. He's talking about structural biases. The media is owned by corporations. It relies on advertising revenue. And it's often embedded with government institutions. All of this creates a situation where the media is more likely to support the status quo than challenge it. Chomsky argues that the media often functions as a filter. It decides what stories get told, how they're framed, and who gets to participate in the conversation. This filtering process, he argues, often reflects the interests of the powerful. This doesn't mean that every journalist is in on some grand conspiracy. It simply means that the system itself is structured in a way that favors certain narratives over others. Section 5, Gaza, a textbook case of rabble keeping. Chomsky's theories aren't just abstract ideas, they play out in the real world all the time. And you know, one of the most striking examples is the ongoing conflict in Gaza. The Gaza Strip is a tiny, densely populated territory. It's been under Israeli blockade for years, and the humanitarian situation there is dire. The conflict is incredibly complex, with a long and bloody history, but Chomsky argues that it's also a clear example of how power works to maintain itself. Chomsky has been a vocal critic of Israel's policies in Gaza. He argues that Israel, as the occupying power, has a responsibility to uphold the human rights of Palestinians. He also criticizes the role of the United States in supporting Israel, often providing military aid and diplomatic cover. Chomsky's analysis of the Gaza conflict isn't without its critics, but it's a powerful illustration of how power dynamics, media narratives, and international relations can converge to create a situation where injustice persists. Section 6. Chomsky's critics: are they right or wrong? Chomsky's work has always been controversial. He's not afraid to challenge the powerful, and he's been a thorn in the side of governments and institutions for decades. So it's no surprise that he's attracted his fair share of critics. Some argue that Chomsky is too cynical, that he sees conspiracies where none exist. They point out that the media isn't monolithic and that there are plenty of journalists doing important work holding power to account. Others criticize his focus on US foreign policy, arguing that he ignores the complexities of international relations and the role of other actors on the world stage. Still others take issue with his views on specific conflicts, like the one in Gaza. They argue that he's biased against Israel and that he ignores the security threats that the country faces. Chomsky's critics raise valid points, but even if you disagree with some of his conclusions, it's hard to deny the power of his analysis. He forces us to question our assumptions, to look beyond the surface, and to consider the possibility that things aren't always as they seem.